didn't look at the minutes. We didn't put minutes. We're not going to do that.
Okay, we're live.
Okay. Welcome everyone to the it's a special meeting of the Police Policy Committee. It is the agenda says Wednesday, Monday, but it is Monday, November 18th, 2:36 p.m. I'm calling this meeting to order. My name is Pete Van Leer, the chair of the Policy Committee. Roll call. Shonda Benito.
Present.
Kyle Early.
Present.
Ronnie Garrett Ferguson is not here, and I am Pete Van Leer. The agenda, do we have any comments? Basically, it's the old business of the corrective action guidance, GPO 1.07.06. Nope, okay. Any public comment? No public comment, so we'll just jump into business. I did send out a version, which is now on our website as well. Thank you to Jocelyn from the staff. I sent out, I had some conversation with Commissioner Chura, and he was overall positive about it. He did, as I mentioned in the email, he talked about ensuring that we have language that says no bargaining. No members of the division who serve as bargaining board members may represent the division on the Fairness and Consistency Committee. So I added that language. Are there any questions about that language? I think it's a good.
I thought is that because there are members of the board, the union boards, that there are members that are not board members but could be bargaining?
Yes. That's
Members of the bargaining committee? Oh, okay, that makes sense.
So it just assures that, I mean, everybody is either CPPA or FOP, right, but this ensures that they are not also bargaining for those unions.
Right.
Yeah. His other comment was about, as in the Fairness and Consistency Committee, this was really the only thing he raised, that 3 division members appointed by a chief of police. The chief first must solicit one from each of those 3 organizations, associations, Black Shield, Hispanic Police Officers Association, Greater Cleveland Emerald Society, and obviously they must all be Cleveland police officers. If one or more of these associations declines committee membership, the chief will replace that appointment with an officer who is currently assigned to basic patrol, holding the position of Patrol Officer 1. And again, not a member of bargaining board. Commissioner Chura's question, and it didn't seem like a deal breaker to him. He was asking about basically rank of sergeant above who is in the FOP. But then there are questions around, do we want, what's the actual numbers, odd number versus even number? So the question we talked about originally, there was in the original draft some time ago, there was a commander level requirement, but we dropped that. This is a little bit different in that it's not necessarily commander, but maybe we could have a discussion around whether or not that is something we should figure out how to add back in, while also balancing it with making sure we have an odd number. Although if the optional people show up, that throws that into question as well. So it may not be the deal breaker here, but if we have thoughts about including FOP representation, we should do that here as well.
So then will we have to add another person to make it uneven?
Either that, or we make sure that one of those 3 is a sergeant or above. If that's something we feel. We could do it that way to ensure, at least for the division members, that there are only 3.
How many sergeants are there?
No idea.
I don't have a current count on that.
I guess
It's plentiful.
Sergeants are above.
Yeah, it's plentiful.
plentiful. Okay, yeah, then we
There's
would
plenty
more
of
numbers.
sergeants to draw from.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the most, out of the promoted ranks, they would have the most.
Oh, okay, then yeah, I don't think that would be an issue then.
So maybe we combine this then and say the chief will replace, well, no, that's, if we have language in there that requires at least one of them to be rank of sergeant above, would that make sense?
I guess I want to understand what the goal is of having, just for diversity of thought.
I think that was Commissioner Chura's sense of it. Like, why, if you're guaranteeing that there will be basic patrol officers who are CPPA, I mean, the first part of that language does not say they have to be basic patrol. But the second part of that says, if they decline membership, the chief will replace that appointment with an officer who is currently assigned to basic patrol, holding the position of patrol officer 1.
I guess one of my thoughts is that inherently in the way that the discipline system works, like it's probably sergeants or above who have more say in like all of the discipline process in terms of like they're the ones who are doing the like investigating and the writing up the stuff. I'm imagining that their higher ranks already have more representation than lower ranked folks, but
Would you like to join the table?
Yeah.
Is it okay if we invite?
Yeah.
Since you were involved with writing the draft. So this is Kayla Pincus. You were part of the working group that gave us the first draft of this document.
So is this really loud? It's okay. Okay. Thank you. So my thought on it is I agree with what Commissioner Benito just said. I think also two things. I think we want to limit the variability of who the chief can appoint. If we give like such options, that worries me a little bit, because I think that the idea here is that everyone in the Cleveland Division of Police basically starts at that level that we're asking be included from the chief. And so with that being the case, you don't end up kind of, you scoop everybody in to that and kind of give everybody the chance to have, to be able to like witness the system and, watch it, kind of make sure that, they're seeing what's happening. So I think I would tend toward keeping it as is. I think it's not like unequal. It's that everybody ends up, I've kind of said it already. Everybody starts out in that role anyway. So everybody would have the opportunity to be on it. Especially also with, I think you guys had made a change, the amount of time for turnover on this so then you're even kind of limiting even further the number of people who will have access to it. If you expand the options available who can be on it, then it's even fewer options for the patrol officers to be able to get access to this. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I don't have a strong sense that we need to do that. I just wanted to raise the issue because from Commissioner Chura.
and you said it didn't seem like it was a deal breaker for him.
His main focus seemed to be on making sure that they don't serve as bargaining board members and represent the division on the fairness and consistency.
I also would say it's not like a critical deal breaker, but that would be my view.
So I would suggest that we leave it as is at this point, and Commissioner Chura will be there Wednesday night, and if we need to, we can look at that and hear from him directly.
I think that sounds good.
Okay. So otherwise, there's been a lot of work on this. So just so we can sort of explain what the process has been, this has been in the works for quite some time. It is the Corrective Action Guidance, GPO. It is largely based on a model policy that was put out by the previous CPC. Was that 2020? 2019, 2020?
Yeah, 20.
And then our work group of Kayla Pincus and Richard Jackson, who was a former CPC member and representative of Black Shield at the time on the CPC, worked to incorporate the draft given to us by the division, as well as comments that had been made in the CPC, and sort of pull that together, but with the basis of it being the model policy that the previous CPC had put forward. So there's been a lot. This is really a fairly newly rewritten, significantly revised, if not entirely rewritten, document. And we've had multiple conversations with the division as well. And I think largely we've moved in the right direction. Is there anybody, I mean, maybe Ms. Pincus, you'd like to say sort of some of the major changes that you all, if you're prepared, I didn't ask you to do this before, so.
That's all right. Are you asking about
In
kind of
terms
what
of,
got us here, or?
yeah, the draft you all gave us to start and what you think the most important pieces
Yeah.
of that are.
Sure. So I'm also just kind of quickly, I'm looking at like the changes from the last one and comparing them in a new document here, just so I'm up to speed on some of these changes. But so with that being said, I'll finish doing that in a second. But basically, I mean, yeah, we used a great deal of the work from the 2019 commission and as well as the comments from the division to incorporate as much perspective as we could on this. The big kind of changes here, I think, are going to be increased transparency for officers and and less, which comes with, or whichever comes first, is kind of less discretion in the giving out of discipline, so that people really know when they're going to work what they can and can't do and what to expect from discipline, if it were to come. And obviously officers have quite a lot on their minds, and so we're really trying to make sure that I think that there's a little bit of a narrative that this body or whatever wants to give out enormous amounts of discipline, and it's actually I think it's a serious misconception, misrepresentation. We're really aiming for fairness, so the extent to which people can be aware of kind of what's on the table for them is what we want. Also, really giving people options for how much time they want to spend on discipline if discipline is to be brought, so that they don't have stuff hanging over their heads for years or weeks or months, that kind of streamlines that process, where it's of course very important to keep in the elements of the consent decree listed, including understanding people's mitigating and aggravating circumstances for the more serious group violations, but removing those for the sake of limiting discretion and maintaining consistency at some of the lesser group, the group violations. And this transparency, the Fairness and Transparency Committee, which I think I just misstated, Fairness and Transparency, Consistency, thank you. Fairness and Consistency Committee is really for the goal of transparency and making sure, and just that, making sure that there's an extra built-in check that all officers have sort of access to knowing that if you do this thing and you're given this discipline, that those things align with the matrix and are not out of order and won't take somebody else coming in to check that work. So later on, in some additional process. And I think that the goal of that is really to kind of is for a bit of a cultural shift within the members. That's pretty much it. And yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Commissioner Benito, you've been very involved with this work. Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think that when looking at the biggest changes that this will have for division members and their experience of getting corrective actions, I think the biggest things that I just want to note are that we have created a category of non-discipline violations that are just less serious offenses, and we've also made clear what the kind of corrective non-disciplined range is, and so those include coaching, verbal counseling, receiving letters of reinstruction, remedial training and referral to employee assistance. And then also that with, and I think that will be, I think really positive for people that, I think we all recognize that we all make errors on our jobs, right? And so, I think it's really good for officers to know that some of these things like, being tardy, three times or less per quarter, the first time you're discourteous or rude to a public member of the public, a coworker, or a supervisor. I mean, I think we all have days where we have a bad day and we are rude to somebody, right? And so general, your first offense, improper usage of wearable camera systems, and so some of these things that I think that if you were to look at our job performance at all of our jobs, right, these are things that sometimes happen. And so, for officers to know that in at least doing those things 3 times or less, that you're going to get coaching and support rather than go through a long disciplinary process. And then I think the other impact that division members will see is for Group 1 violations. We have taken out the aggravating and mitigating factors to kind of just help streamline some of and make sure that staff can actually know what they're going to receive. And just to be clear, the 3 types of corrective action you can receive for a Group 1 violation is written re-instruction, a 1-day suspension, or a 2-day suspension. So again, those are fairly more minor offenses and more minor corrective actions. And so by standardizing that as much as possible, I think the idea is that we will just see much more standardization and officers can much more reliably know what to expect. And also know that, that regardless of rank, people are getting the same corrective action. I think also we have made the list longer of what is a Group 1, a Group 2, a Group 3, or a Group 4 violation, and included more examples. And so I think then officers can really look at this list and have an idea of what they're going to be charged with. Some of the earlier drafts had a number of things in the same category, like in different categories. So the same offense, but in 3 different categories. And there was a lot more subjectiveness there. So I'm imagining I'm an officer and I know that the thing that I'm being charged with is that thing that's in 3 categories. Then how do I know what it's going to end up being? And I feel like that would just lead to a lot of anxiety and uncertainty in an already stressful situation. And so I think having a more comprehensive list where things are mostly in one category only, I think will also be positive. And, really what we're hoping to do kind of along the lines of what Ms. Pincus said is I think a lot of people see the CPC as we want to be the doler-outer of discipline and corrective action. We want to do all this. And really what we want to see happen is the internal processes being made so that we don't have to issue a lot of discipline, that the matrix, people are fairly following the matrix. The matrix is such that there isn't unjust or inequitable subjectiveness, and also that we improve other police policies and training so that we don't see as many infractions and we don't see as many cases that come to us. So I really think that this is a big part of what we're trying to do, and also why the previous commission created that Fairness and Consistency Committee, so that the division itself can be the ones checking on that and be advocating for better application of discipline. So, yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Early, I know you were looking at this early on as well. So if you have any comments or thoughts, please share them.
Yeah, I think that one of the successes that we've all highlighted is the building off of the previous commission and the work that they have done, along with the executive director and other staff and work groups. So I want to say that this is a reflection of that, the work that was laid before us and the work that was put on top of it to make sure that it was complete. It's also a great sign of collaboration and effort and partnership from community to the CPD to the CPC as well. So I'm just excited to see that and encouraging the community to take a look at it online as well, to educate themselves with it and encouraging our other commissioners to become familiar with it so we can get this vote passed.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I don't have much to add except to thank again Kayla Pincus and Richard Jackson for their work on this, which really helped us move this forward in the last couple months. So appreciate that.
Can I ask 2 questions?
Sure.
Okay. We don't have to harp on them, but I'm curious about okay, I'm on page 6, number 13, right before the violation section, having to do with resignations. I would just wonder if you guys, like, where did that come from? Or like kind of what's the reason behind that to whatever extent you're able to.
Yeah,
Sure.
so I remember this part, we added that. It's basically that just because a member resigns during an investigation doesn't mean that investigation stops. And I think part of that is so that there will be a record for that individual. And so, for example, if they try to get a job elsewhere, that record will be clear and, they won't be able to just go away.
Got it. And then the other question, thank you. The other question is number 7, having to do with recruits and probation status officers. If you could just similarly kind of comment on that.
Okay.
The same section.
Yeah.
Yes.
That came from the division, I'm pretty sure, in a recent conversation and draft, back and forth with the division's policy unit. So yeah, it's just basically that if you are a recruit or on probationary status, and you are involved in that kind of misconduct, then the presumption is that you will be terminated.
And I think part of why is that, under the Civil Service Code and I think the collective bargaining agreement, like there's a probationary period that new officers are subjected to. And if we don't clarify that, then it could be seen as being in conflict with this. If they could say, well, under the corrective action matrix, it's my first time doing this, and so therefore I should receive this. And so it just is acknowledging that basically that there's a different set of standards for probationary, for officers that are under probation, which is already laid out in other parts of the bargaining agreement and civil service rules.
Okay. I'm just sort of thinking, it's possible that this is totally fine. And it's not something I want to harp on for, too long. Not a deal breaker, certainly, but I'm just wondering out loud if there is any downside to it being like worded this way. I'm thinking like if, or even just to reference that code to say, that under however is otherwise defined. I think the only concern that I have is just that we also don't want this section being abused. Right. And so because it's not particular, like it almost makes it seem in this section like there are no rules for probation. And it might be valuable if we instead say like that we just reference whatever the pre-existing ones are. I'm wondering if it can be used in a way that's overly discretionary, even with, I don't know, maybe it's not making sense. I don't know. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think the idea between any probationary period is that when you first start your job, you're on your best behavior.
Yeah.
And so concerns that you see in performance at the very beginning are additionally concerning because if that's how you are on your best behavior, then what's it gonna look like 1 year, 2 years in?
Right.
And so, I mean, I don't see how I'm not concerned about this being abused. I think the other thing too is it does say serious or intentional and deliberate misconduct. And it's saying that it will presumptively result in the termination of that member's employment. So I think that what it's saying is that, I don't think they're gonna fire a probationary period officer for being late once, right? Because I think that's not a serious level of misconduct. But what it's saying is that if you do a group 2 or group 3 violation, that you could still be terminated because of being in a probationary period. So I'm not concerned about that.
Yeah, I just wonder if the word serious is, maybe we take out serious, but intentional and deliberate misconduct, because it just, anyway, I'll leave it be, but I or even specifying group 2 through 4 violations or something to that effect, but just kind of more slightly putting the parameters around it, and sounds like maybe Jason has something to say here.
To the chair, I would leave the way they handle probationary employees alone. If you're in the academy, you're subject to a higher standard. And in fact, I know your concern, I've heard your concern. The difference is it's actually underutilized.
Oh.
During probationary periods, they should probably be washing a lot more recruits who later have problems. So I think if anything, we need to strengthen up the way we evaluate employee performance at the front end, because at the back end, once you achieve your probationary status and you have union protections, it's really hard to remove you. So my experience has been that we give probationary employees too much deference and don't use that enough. Not in fact the opposite.
Fair enough. I'll leave.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
let the rest.
Yeah. It's a good opportunity to before they have all the union rights to weed out bad behavior and not have to go through the trouble of arbitration and all that. So.
Okay. Director Goodrick, I know you were very involved with moving this policy forward. Do you have any comments?
I'm just happy to see it finally go to a vote.
So with that, I think we will call for a vote.
Excuse me,
Commissioner Benito,
what are you voting on?
Commissioner Early,
Aye.
and I say aye. And so this passes. We'll present it to the full commission. And with no further business, I will say we make a motion, we adjourn early.
This,
Commissioner Benito?
this commission
I
is
second.
acting
Commissioner
completely,
Early?
you are lying
I
to
second the
people
motion.
on email
I say
about
aye.
the
This meeting is
GPO.
adjourned.
This is not adjourned. What is wrong with you? You're lying about Lukacs. You're lying about Gordon Freeman.